The higher you crank the difficulty in Fallout 4, the more legendary enemies you'll find. But if you max out your odds by playing on survival past level 50, you've still got less than a 1 in 3 shot at any enemy being legendary, which is just pathetic. I like my games to be hard. Can you beat Fallout 4 if every enemy is legendary? I used the Legendary Enemies Only mod to make this playthrough happen. After installing the mod, all enemies across all difficulties are converted into legendary enemies. But there's a problem. A couple enemies have no legendary variants, like turrets. You'll never find a legendary turret out in the wasteland because Todd said so. But I think the both of us know the point isn't whether it can or cannot be done. It's about the journey, not the destination. Being left at the gas station on the way to Disney World will be a better story than anything you get from Disney World. With that in mind, I almost made the woman of my dreams. Her teeth are a little too white for my taste, gave her a good name, and picked my specialties. I'm going with the Idiot Savant experience tree this time. No building statues in place for infinite levels, or making Uncle Sam salivate by pulling oil out of thin air. Before leaving for good, I left the refrigerator door open. My husband and I ran for the vault. He had an accident, and I emerged from my pod, ready to get f***ed by the legendary roaches waiting for me. Or so you thought. Legendary enemies don't start spawning until level 8. Using a console command, I set myself up to level 8 to begin the actual challenge as quickly as possible. Enemies scale with you in Fallout 4. I have no extra equipment. I'm worse off now than I would have been at level 1. After a couple snafus involving Preston, his attackers, a bit of back-end work, and some patience, the legendary foes began to take the field, and it started off nice and slow with the elderly. They have a fun few effects applied to them. All legendary enemies have a chance to mutate and regain their health. In fact, being underpowered will make it more likely for them to mutate. You want to be a walking tank if at all possible. If an enemy takes significant damage and doesn't die, it'll mutate and activate a dormant ability. However, a named NPC that becomes an enemy will not become legendary, nor will it mutate unless you count dying to be a mutation. Another fun affectation of legendary enemies is legendary loot. Weapons and armor that can do all sorts of from dealing radiation damage to giving your gun a bottomless clip to making each bullet do explosive damage. It applies to armors as well. These can increase movement speed or give your liver an adamantium coating to take less damage when drinking chemicals, or even make you lucky. One of the first raiders I killed had an explosive 10mm pistol for me. That came in handy in the market when I got swarmed by ghouls. I of course had been training for this since late 2012. Classic zombies tactics. Form a train, blow it up, make a crawler, the next round begins when you're in the bathroom and you get stuck fighting for your life. Luckily for me, you can make a vertical crawler by disconnecting their arms. Despite the abundance of enchanted items spewing from everyone I kill, I still found myself getting my ass kicked in every fight I picked. That extended outside to fights others picked for me. Here I used a few of those perk points I'd given myself earlier to give myself the edge. What I got was a butter knife. I had nothing to make it through a legendary raider's power armor. I let him drop a fat man on the ghouls, I searched the bodies while he was reloading, and passed through the colon of Fallout 4 Corvega assembly plant. Inside were a bunch of scary looking guys who threw a non-legendary at me to disorient me and throw me off my game and kill me. I knew better the next time. I activated my aimbot and hit them where they sleep. On my way to Diamond City to search for the real game, I found Rufus and his friends. Didn't find any guns from them, but what my ears found were calls for help from a police station. That's Paladin Danse and his squad being assaulted by a horde of legendary ghouls. Danse himself is immortal, and I had the foresight to stand on a car and aim for the kneecaps. That tactic came back and bit me in the ass after the dust settled. None of the ghouls we slew together had legendary weapons. It wasn't a total waste. I looked marvelous with my sweaty face glistening in the moonlight. The light bulb did a dance in the office for me. I stole the station's medical supplies because my future wounds are more important than Reese's current wounds, and set off for ArcJet with Danse. One of the first world struggles of this run is deciding which guns and armor to use. Legendary effects are so cool until everything has a gimmick, then they lose all meaning and you're back to using whatever is the most effective. The explosive double Shottington devastates anything it touches, including both me and Dogmeat after a misclick near the terminal. The terminal let me reroute power and activate the rocket test site with Dogmeat in the firing chamber. I felt pretty good about that plan until Dogmeat ran towards me as the countdown started. He was smarter than we gave him credit for. He knew to do the shimmy with his paws to keep the heat from burning his little beans. Having successfully rescued the deep-range distress beacon, Dance invited Mother Mary into the Brotherhood, and I took on the raiders in a boat with a crank gun, just as Great-Grandpa Mitten did shortly before he got took by the dementia. At Diamond City, I saw that the security guards are another group who can't be legendary. With them and the turrets being the town's only defenses, I lured the legendary glowing mutant hound to the guards and let them battle it out. I didn't do much in the Great Green Jewel. I bought a few stim packs and some ammo, and I spoke to Ellie to get a waypoint to Nick Valentine down in Park Street Station. That's where I was headed next, and I did get there, but on the way there I found something awful. I never figured out what caused it, but super mutants are now invisible, and you haven't lived until you've heard and then seen a beeping glowing mini-nuke floating through the air with a pair of boots running underneath it. The mutant hounds are equally as terrifying. Near point-blank explosive shotgun shells to the forehead are like flies to a wall. Don't be mistooken. On a normal difficulty, the common enemies are still a threat, and with no points in intelligence, my body can't fully utilize all the medicine contained in a stim pack. These guys are legendary like the rest, but because they're tunnel worms, they don't wear anything but suits and hats, so they lack any damage resistance. The dog ran down and caused a disturbance while I picked them off from the stairwell way in the back. I wasn't playing smart as a tactic, I was doing it out of desperation. I'd already ran low of medical supplies, though I did find corn in one of the trigger men. To get to Nick Valentine, one must kill Dino, and for the first time in human history, I didn't kill him with a sneak attack. With Nick safely under my spell, he covered my back while I searched the bodies for toys, and in a corpse I found a top-tier weapon in the wounding 10mm pistol. Bullet sponge enemies love their hit points, and a gun that deals damage over time works wonders against them. Now that Skinny Malone's jaywalking days are over, I spoke to Nick in Diamond City about my missing offspring. He's baby-sized, made noise, occasionally smelled of shit, hard to miss. McDonough's seen the kid before, had an affinity for breakfast cereal if I remember it right. Inside the house I found more clues about the whereabouts of my boy. Dogmeat's supposed to track down the scent, but I've known all along where Kellogg was hiding, westish. Just before entering Fort Hagen, I sorted through my inventory and got down to the bare essentials. From 285 pounds down to a reasonable 280. I'd need to be as lean and mean as possible to beat the army of legendary synths waiting for me inside. They pair well with any explosive weapon. Their limbs can be blown off like a ghoul's. At a certain point they lose all hope and just sit there waiting to be bashed in the nose. I tried to let Kellogg talk his way out of this. He couldn't come up with anything funny enough to make me swoon, so I hit him where it hurts, in the knees. I've never been in a real fight in my life unless you count getting punched in the theology class of fight, but going straight for the knees would be my strategy. Somehow in the night I picked up a bit of a tan. Nicholas informed me of a good neighborhood to continue my search. Good Neighbor and its surrounding area of the Commonwealth is this game's equivalent of Fallout 3's metro tunnels. Spend 20 minutes meandering around with the moles, only to find out you should have made a left instead of a right. Kellogg's memories predictably caught me at the worst moment right as I was about to sneeze. Dogmeat and friend welcomed me back from my trip. I got an extra helping of experience pie for surviving it, and against the wishes of everyone else in the room who could talk, I set off for Virgil in the glowing sea. I should have known when I struggled against the active camo-wearing super mutants that I'd be in for a world of hurt. They're so unsettling to watch. As for the glowing sea, the already tough as nails blood bugs and whatnot, coupled with my unwillingness to prepare by buying medical supplies or ammo, made it the unfriendliest place on Earth. The Deathclaws are weak-minded. You can kill them by jumping backwards constantly to evade their attacks while tearing at the flesh on their legs with explosive buckshot. Blood bugs have no weaknesses. They're the perfect being, the final form we should all aspire to be. Unlike Virgil, he is nothing. This is how I know my mod idea is possible. Invisible NPCs, and the HUD opacity must be all the way down. What a challenge. To advance the story, I returned to the Boston area to find a courser. You'll find it in Green Tech Genetics, the building next to the park where the missionaries are having a concert. Legendary gunners are littering the levels leading up to the courser. This gunner in particular didn't give a shit about me trying to use VATS. I couldn't say the same for the courser. I met him with a fully cranked laser rifle, VATS'd him with a critical shot. I wasn't taking any chances, ripped the chip from his dome and got it decoded by the railroad. After returning to Virgil to get his teleporter plans, I had to decide who to side with. Seeing as I already started with the Brotherhood, I chose them to be my new BFFs. Standard regulation meet and greet aboard the blimp. Have you noticed the guns on people's hips? It looks so great, doesn't it? That's modding at work. Bethesda might not have done that themselves, but at least they never spat in their hand and slapped their fans in the face with it by trying to say it was a UI limitation. Maxon's orders for me are to secure Fort Strong from the Friends of Strong. Rather than sticking around the destroyed buildings for close quarters combat, I lured the mutants down the bridge towards the way station. It's like shooting fish in a barrel, but the fish have guns too since I have no cover. The behemoth couldn't wrap his head around this triangle-shaped railing. I gave the dolphins a fishing rod and caps and cleared out the main floor. This is a different level of combat than I grew up with. Back in my day, a missile launcher into a group of muties with their pets would kill them all. Now, it's a fat man and a cryo mine just to start. The times, they went and changed when I looked away. It's like 1 second I'm in my kitchen making hamburger helper, then I blinked and 5 million people are dead. And that's not even including all the people I wish to die. Dance congratulatory me on my slaughter. Maxon gave me grenades as the sky was awash with Christmas colors. And I was starting to get really long loading screens. They might have been 3 minutes long, but when I was sitting there watching them doing nothing, it felt closer to 4 minutes. Ingram used what little brain function she had left after the accident to decode Virgil's plans, allowing me to zap myself into the Institute and meet whoever this is supposed to be. He claims to be my son, but no son of mine would be caught alive having eyes that close together. And they're so recessed into his skull, it's disgusting. In spite of that disappointment, I met my son's friends and took one of them for myself. Dr. Lee's wanted by the Brotherhood of Steel. I wasn't wearing my sunglasses, so my usual tricks wouldn't work on her. I won her over in the end with logic, reason, and the threat of death, and under her tutelage, I did a few repairs for the secret weapon codenamed Liberty Prime. His knees need the most work, along with his weapons and personality. New knees are in the old abandoned hospital being used by mutants as a play place. In elementary school, this kid Austin, he punched me in the head in a McDonald's play place. Austin, if you're watching this, your mom's a whore. All Liberty Prime's lacking now is a good baseball coach and a few balls to throw. They're in the basement of the Stanley R. Mickelson Safeguard Complex, or Sentinel Site for short. A pack of feral ghouls are waiting down there to swarm the unsuspecting player who doesn't have a sacrificial distraction animal. This plasma-infused pipe gun, with help from gun damage increasing perks, made quick work of the ghouls down below. One of the children of Adam died with a nuka grenade in his hand. Naturally, I used it against his friends to secure the nuclear bombs for the Brotherhood, and traveled out to the forgotten land of low-resolution textures to execute Paladin Dance for being an Institute sympathizer. Morale has never been higher among the troops. We've learned that your best friend or closest confidant could be listening in on your conversations, eavesdropping for the enemy. Before Liberty Prime can glass the planet, the Railroad have to leave. Unfortunately for them, I agree with the Elder's directive to wipe them out. The Railroad agents have no legendary versions of themselves. Personally, I take that as an insult. Gonna show up in my video unprepared? I don't think so. I'm the only one allowed to do that. I blew this guy's cranium into next year and stuck a baby rattle in the throat hole. The upside to having no legendaries down here is named NPCs always put up more of a fight than the others. They have a reputation to uphold. I did as instructed. The train yard had been graffitied. The last component is the beryllium agitator in mass fusion. As I planned from the very start, I let the Institute know what the Brotherhood were planning. I broke into Justin's house and woke him up to tell him the enemy above ground are making moves against them. He instructed me to break into Ellie's house to spread the news. She didn't know how I learned about the fabled 4th phase of Del Boca Vista. There was no time to chat, we had to get the mass fusion right then and there. What slipped my mind as I was stabbing the Brotherhood in the back was the thick steel-plated power armor worn by legendary knights. I'm still more or less in the same outfit I was wearing when I met Paladin Dance for the first time, but my ideas have only gotten worse. Remember those 8 vertibird signal grenades Maxon gave me? I used them all in a desperate attempt to confuse the Brotherhood and make them attack each other. They didn't show up. I had no choice but to snag the keycard, run for the elevator, pop a stealth boy, and hope for the best. Dogmeat stood steadfast by my side, silently snarling at the Institute as they blew the conduit and crashed the elevator. He got scared when it was time to attack. After grabbing the agitator, 3 impossible robots have to be killed, 1 legendary sentry bot, and 2 legendary Assaultrons. Have I mentioned I have like 2 stim packs? I pulled out my super ultimate last resort Hail Mary mega move, Jet to slow time, Med-X for damage resistance, Psycho for good measure, and my trusty explosive shotgun. I died. That's too many moves to keep track of. I scaled it down to Jet and a gun that causes wounds. As time slowed, I could land dozens of shots, each of which deal 25 damage over 5 seconds on top of their base damage. For the Assaultron twins, a fat man would suffice. Having brought the Institute the key to infinite power, the story drags to a halt as you're back to retrieving a rogue synth with a courser. I didn't have time for that. I loaded an old save from the 15-second long window in time between when I had the idea to betray the Brotherhood and when I decided to betray the Brotherhood. Had to do all of mass fusion over again, but I'm not fighting those metal monsters anymore. Ingram's fat ass knocked the elevator off its tracks. I fixed it, left her and Dogmeat to deal with the attackers, used the same tactics as I did the last time to retrieve the objective, and went to meet Father in the Institute. I got as far as the teleporter pad, which had been sealed off to the entrance. Father felt the power of online anonymity flowing through his vocal cords. Ingram and I powered up Liberty Prime, and she dropped bombs on all the legendary synths and whatnot in her way. The special effects applied to them made no difference to Miss Prime. Most of them, my teammates too, used their primary weapons over the weapon added by their legendary status. Some take advantage of their better guns, just not all. That doesn't impede their ability to take a walloping. I had the idea in my head that a bottomless SMG with 1,000 rounds would act like a win button against the synths, but it didn't in the dramatic overkilling fashion I'd hoped. XPS 20 burned the shit out of Elder Maxon, but fell in seconds to the guy who plays games on a real gaming machine like an iMac, and I rode up to greet Father for the last time. I told him I was annihilating his life's work because I can. As an insult, I killed him with radiation, put an early end to the few coursers and Institute scientists fighting for their cause in the reaction chamber, rigged the bomb, told the kid his mommy doesn't love him, nuked the synths, and didn't beat Fallout 4 with every enemy being legendary. If you enjoyed the video or learned anything, leave a like. Leave a dislike if you didn't enjoy the video or didn't learn anything. Thanks to the Champion tier supporters as well as other channel members for making videos like this one possible. Join the Mitten Squad Discord server by going to mitten.land. Follow me on Twitter @MittenSquad. My name is Paul of Mitten Squad. Have a wonderful day.